Let's look at the small, manageable, actionable steps you can actually start taking today to begin rebuilding your identity during separation or after divorce. When I work with separated and divorced men in my Better Beyond Divorce coaching program, identity is one of the biggest challenges they face. They've been a husband and often a father for most of their adult life. And now who are they, right? Without the family, without your wife, that role encompasses so many elements of who you are and so many of the things you do, right? Not just were you the husband and the father, you were the provider, the protector, the rock. And the loss of that identity leaves a lot of the men I work with struggling with this massive loss of motivation. Right? Why go to work? Why struggle through the challenges of the day? All of these things that I did, all the sacrifices I made were for her, for us, for our shared dream that I thought we were working towards together. And often they get in this headspace where it just seems really pointless. So I'm going to share with you 5 simple, actionable steps that you can start taking right now to help you establish a sense of who you are now on the other side of this marriage. It's also going to help you start to restore that motivation and your hope for being able to have a future that isn't just getting by, but is really rich and vibrant and even full of new relationships down the road. I'd like to give a big shout out and thank you to Chris Gillard. He's the author of the Divorced Man's Kitchen Survival Guide, and it was a conversation with Chris that really inspired me to think about and share these steps with you today. So step 1 is learn to cook. And now it doesn't actually have to be cooking, but it's learning something new, right? Learn a new language, learn to speak Spanish, learn to play the guitar or ride a motorcycle or grow tomatoes. When you learn something new, you become somebody new. Right? I am now someone who cooks. I am now someone who speaks Spanish. This simple act of learning something new and becoming someone new in the process, it teaches your brain that your identity isn't so rigid, right? That you can change who you are by changing what you do. And that takes me to the second step, which is to act as if you were already the person that you want to become. So we've all heard the saying, right? What would Jesus do? Well, I have a slightly different one for you. I'd like you to start asking yourself, what would my best self do? If I were kinder, more patient, more emotionally intelligent, more successful, more confident, how would that version of me respond to this situation? Because every day we're all making hundreds, maybe thousands of all these little micro choices, right? How do you talk to the teller at the bank? How do you respond to an email from your lawyer? How do you speak to yourself when you wake up or to your kids when they spill cereal and milk all over the couch? How would the man that you want to be, how would he respond to each of those situations? Small actions add up. Every time you act a different way, you are shifting your identity towards the identity you'd like to embrace for yourself. And maybe it is about confidence, success, patience, emotional intelligence, the ability to cultivate healthy relationships. In his book, The Upward Spiral, the neuroscientist and author Alex Korb writes a lot about this. He shows us how these small actions can lead us to spiral, and they can make us spiral up or spiral down. Right? And his book is largely about depression and how to spiral up out of depression. It takes less than you might think to start making that shift, to start spiraling up. Small actions consistently performed will start to change who you are, how you think, and how you feel. And then this is where step 3 comes in. Step 3 is to celebrate small wins. The brain pays attention to what you pay attention to. And when you're in pain, it's easy to focus on pain. You see it everywhere, you feel it, you're desperately trying to escape it. And usually you're looking for this big change, this big release or transformation. And in that process, you might miss all of the subtle, smaller changes. Like a small change might be that you cried for 20 minutes this morning, but yesterday you cried for 30, right? So this was a little bit less awful. Or a small win might be going to the gym on a day where you could barely get out of bed. And yeah, sure, maybe you only stayed for 10 minutes, but you got there and you couldn't do that before. Right? These are not like, woohoo, giant celebration wins, but you should celebrate them anyway because something is different. Something has changed. It's a little bit better than before, or maybe it's just a little bit less horrible than it was before. But when you celebrate small wins, you're telling your brain that shift, even if it was just from horrible to kind of awful, that shift mattered. Because when you tell your brain it matters, it's going to start working with you to create more of those shifts. And again, we get to start spiraling upwards. And celebration can be really simple, you guys. It can be as simple as recognizing it, stopping and going, that's a little bit better. That's a little bit different. I did that. I made a change. Or it could be something big, buy yourself something you've been wanting or take yourself out for a special meal. One way or another, though, recognize the small changes that you do make. Step 4 is to create new traditions. Tradition, ritual, ceremony, whatever you want to call it. There's been a lot of interesting research lately that is showing that these repetitive kind of ceremonial actions we take are incredibly calming and soothing to the nervous system. They make us feel better, especially when we've suffered a loss or when we're facing really uncertain life events. Divorce is obviously both, right? It's a huge loss and the future is really uncertain, but divorce also robs you of many of your traditions and rituals because they all involved her, right? So the very thing that was once soothing to you, calming to your nervous system, is actually really triggering and painful. So creating new traditions is really important, right? It's important for your nervous system, but it's also important as part of your new identity, right? The new traditions moving forward will help ground you emotionally in this next stage of your life and in who you're becoming. So a lot of my clients find that it's helpful to create new traditions with their kids. Things like we cook together or make homemade pizza on Saturday nights, or we have a game night on Thursdays, or maybe something bigger like we travel somewhere every year for Christmas instead of celebrating in the family home. You can also create new traditions with new partners or invite your friends and family to help you make new traditions. Step 5 is pretty similar. It's creating new emotional anchors to triggering songs, movies, or books. So you probably noticed that every song in your playlist has suddenly become something you can't listen to, right? Because they're all tied to her, your life together, your future together. There's a memory linked to all of this music, and sound and music in particular is really good at eliciting those strong memories. So it can be incredibly painful. You can find new music to enjoy, but you can also rewire your emotional connection to the old music so that it doesn't dredge up such strong memories. And so to do this is setting an anchor is an NLP technique, but it's something we all do. It's just an association, right? Right now, the music is associated to a memory of her, and that's painful. So we want to replace that with a new association. And you can do that intentionally by doing something you enjoy. Maybe it's a new tradition. Maybe it's making pizza with your kids on Saturday night, and you play that music. And yes, at first it's going to bring up the old memories, but you focus on this new activity that you're doing, and you allow that music to become part of the new tradition, part of this new memory. So this is something that Chris Gillard told me he did with a lot of old songs. And he did tell me it takes time. And it always does, anytime you're setting an association in your brain. So don't do this when you're still in the really fresh, painful stages of grief. Do this when you have a little bit of emotional balance, stability, and you're feeling ready to face some of these old memories. And then go out and start creating new memories and allow these songs that you enjoy to be a part of those new memories. And with time and with consistency, you can start to create a new association in your brain between the new events, the new joyful activities you're engaged in, the new people in your life, and this music. And eventually, it will stop reminding you of your ex and start being tied to that new feeling, the joyful feelings that you've linked it to. With all of these tools, please do not expect massive shifts overnight. Right? Honestly, we wouldn't want that because what you've lost matters and what you've gone through in this divorce matters. And there's a lot of emotional processing work that needs to happen. And it takes time to develop this post-divorce identity. So go gently, give yourself grace, and just start taking these small actions, allowing small changes, allow yourself to start forming and exploring this new identity. If you'd like to explore the loss of identity and how it impacts your ability to heal and move forward with your life, I've made a whole video all about that, so please come with me into this next one if you're finding this topic interesting and you want to keep going. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you here in the next one.